The night my roommate brought a date home, I found out by accident. I was in the kitchen making tea I didn't actually want, the kind of late night ritual that's less about caffeine and more about having something to do with your hands when sleep won't come. The apartment was quiet. I had assumed it would stay that way. Then the front door opened, and Lena walked in with someone who was not me. My name is Marcus Cole. I was 29, a structural engineer at a mid-sized firm in Austin, and I had been living with Lena Vasquez for 7 months in a third-floor apartment with good light, bad water pressure, and one shared wall between our bedrooms that we had both agreed never to acknowledge. Lena was 27. She designed interiors for a boutique firm downtown, which explained why our apartment looked intentional rather than accidental. Every shelf held something placed on purpose. Every corner had been considered. She moved through spaces like she was already thinking about how to improve them. And she moved through conversations the same way. Precise, warm, unexpectedly funny in the moments you weren't ready for it. We had become good friends in the quiet way that happens when two careful people share a kitchen long enough. Coffee in the morning without speaking much. Takeout on Thursday nights because we had both decided Thursday was emotionally the hardest day of the week. Her reading on the couch while I sketched load calculations at the table, existing in the same room without needing to fill it. I had rules about Lena, sensible rules. Don't notice too much. Don't read anything into small kindnesses. Don't look at her the way you want to look at her when she comes home tired and kicks her shoes off at the door and says, "You look like you've been staring at numbers again," like she can read my face from across a room. The rules had been working reasonably well until the night she walked in with someone named Daniel. He was tall, easy-smiled, the kind of person who looked comfortable immediately in unfamiliar rooms. Lena introduced us in the hallway with that slightly careful brightness people use when two parts of their life are meeting unexpectedly. "Marcus, this is Daniel. Daniel, Marcus is my roommate." He shook my hand. I said something forgettable. He said something easy. Lena was already moving toward the kitchen, saying she'd get drinks. I went back to my tea. That was the responsible move. Take the tea, go to your room, put headphones in, give them the apartment the way decent people give each other space. I almost made it. But then I sat at my desk and found I couldn't concentrate on anything. Not the drafting file I'd left open. Not the book on my nightstand. Not the ambient playlist I put on specifically to create the illusion that I was fine. Through the wall, I could hear the low murmur of their conversation, not the words, just the rhythm of it. Her laugh once, real but brief. I stayed in my room for 40 minutes before thirst gave me a reason I was willing to accept. The living room was lit by the lamp Lena had brought from her old apartment, the one with the amber shade that made everything look like early evening no matter the hour. They were on the couch, a careful distance between them. Daniel was talking. Lena was listening with her head tilted slightly, the polite version of attention she gave people she was still deciding about. I filled my glass at the kitchen sink. I was not watching them. Then Lena looked up, not at Daniel, at me. It lasted maybe 2 seconds. She held my gaze with an expression I couldn't immediately name, something between noticing and asking. And Daniel said something, and she turned back to him, and I went to my room and stood in the dark for a moment longer than was strictly necessary. Over the next hour, it happened 4 more times. I know because I came out twice more. Once for water I didn't need, and once because I'd left my phone charger on the kitchen counter, which was true but also convenient. Each time, within a minute of me appearing, Lena's eyes would find me. Not obviously. Not in a way Daniel seemed to catch. Just a quiet gravitational pull, the kind that only means something if you've been trying to ignore it for months. The third time I came out, Daniel was telling a story about a hiking trip. Lena was nodding. And then she looked at me over his shoulder with an expression that was almost amused, almost apologetic, almost something I wasn't ready to name in a kitchen at 11:30 at night. I went back to my room and did not come out again. At half past midnight, I heard the front door. Then quiet. Then Lena's footsteps moving down the hall past my door, stopping. She knocked twice, soft, not urgent. I opened it. She was still in her going out clothes, a dark jacket, her hair still pinned. She leaned against the doorframe with her arms crossed loosely and looked at me like she'd been rehearsing something and had decided to throw it out. "He was nice," she said. Seemed like it. She nodded slowly. "We're not going to see each other again." I kept my expression where it was. "You knew that tonight?" I knew it pretty early. A pause. "You were more interesting to look at." The hallway held that sentence between us for a moment. "Lena," I said. "I know," she said. Not defensively. Tiredly, the way people say it when they're done pretending something is more complicated than it is. "I've known for a while. I just didn't know if you had." And there was the truth, sitting in the hallway at midnight in a jacket she hadn't taken off yet. I had rules. I knew why I'd made them. I knew the math of risking a living situation and a friendship against something that might be nothing. I had run the numbers the way engineers do, accounting for every variable that could go wrong. What I had not accounted for was Lena looking at me across a room 4 times in 1 hour while Someone else was talking to her. I have, I said. She uncrossed her arms. I moved slightly back from the door, not dramatically, just enough to make space for a question. She understood it, because she understood most things about how I moved through a room without me explaining. She stepped inside. We talked for 2 hours, sitting on the floor of my room with our backs against the bed, because neither of us had thought to sit somewhere normal. She told me she'd been aware of it since month 3, a specific afternoon when I'd helped her carry a bookshelf up 3 flights of stairs and we'd stood in her doorway afterward, out of breath, and she'd thought, this is a problem. She'd decided to ignore it. She'd been moderately successful until she wasn't. I told her about the rules. She looked unsurprised. I have rules too, she said. They're well designed. They've been failing for months. At some point, I said her name and she turned her face toward mine and I kissed her. Not impulsively, deliberately, the way you do something you've been considering long enough that when you finally do it, it feels less like a decision and more like an answer. She kissed me back and her hand came up against my jaw and neither of us pretended it was surprising. After a while, we sat in the quiet of my room with our shoulders touching and the city making its low sounds outside the window. This is going to change things, she said. Some things. The good ones, I looked at her, especially those. She stayed for another hour. Then she went to her room and I stayed in mine, and neither of us needed to manufacture a reason. Some beginnings don't require a dramatic landing. They just require you to finally stop looking away. The next morning, she was in the kitchen before me. She handed me coffee before I asked for it. I took it and stood beside her, and we didn't make the silence strange. He texted, she said. Daniel? He was kind about it. She set her mug down. I was honest. I nodded. She looked at me sideways. You were a very inconvenient person to develop feelings for. You designed that bookshelf wall. I feel the blame is distributed. She laughed, and I felt it like something settling into place. We moved slowly after that, the way you do when you don't want to rush something that finally has room to be real. Real first dates, real conversations, the kind where you stop editing yourself because the person across from you already knows which cabinet holds the mugs and which version of your silence means you're tired versus when something's wrong. The apartment stayed the same, good light, bad water pressure, one shared wall we no longer pretended didn't exist. But it felt different. Not louder, not more dramatic, just honest. Like a room you've always lived in, seen finally in accurate light. If you've ever had a moment where someone looked at you when they should have been looking somewhere else and you understood exactly what it meant, tell me about it in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.